The storm had been chasing her for hours. Wind ripped across the highway, bending the Oregon pines like they were bowing to something unseen. The rain came sideways, cold, violent, relentless. Arya Dalton could barely keep her hands steady on the steering wheel. Her old Ford groaned with every gust. She didn't know where she was anymore. The GPS had died an hour ago. The phone showed nothing but a black screen and a low battery symbol that blinked once, then vanished. Perfect. Lightning cut the sky open, white against endless black. For a heartbeat, she saw the forest stretching around her in every direction. Then darkness swallowed it again. Arya wasn't running from something. She was running through something. That was what it felt like. The storm wasn't chasing her. It was guiding her somewhere. Then, without warning, something darted across the road. She hit the brakes. Hard. The truck fishtailed, tires shrieking against wet asphalt. Her heart slammed into her ribs. The headlights caught a flash of movement. Fur, dark and glistening, eyes like molten gold. Wolf. Huge. Too big. It froze in the beam for a heartbeat, staring straight into her soul, then vanished into the trees. The engine sputtered and died. Arya sat in stunned silence, her breath fogging the windshield. The rain had stopped. The air was heavy, electric, alive. Then she saw it. Something glowing faintly on the road where the wolf had stood. A drop of blood. No, not a drop. Dozens. Trail. She opened the door. The wind hit her like a living thing, but she followed the blood anyway. Down the ditch into the forest. The smell of rain mixed with iron. Her boots sank into mud. Every instinct screamed go back, but curiosity, or maybe something older, kept her moving. The deeper she went, the louder her heartbeat became. Until she saw him. He was on his knees in the clearing, half naked, covered in blood that wasn't all his. Steam rose from his skin. The rain glistened on muscle, scars, and something else. Something impossible. He looked up when she gasped. His eyes were those same gold embers she'd seen on the road. "Don't come closer," he said, voice raw, almost broken. Arya froze. "You're hurt." His gaze flicked to her wrist. "You shouldn't be here. Let me help you." "No," his breath shuddered. "You don't understand. I understand you're bleeding." She took another step. He flinched. "That's not my blood." She stopped. The forest around them was utterly still now. No wind, no rain, just silence. The kind that waited for something to happen. He rose to his feet. The movement was too smooth, too graceful for a man half dead. "Go back to your truck. Leave this place before dawn." "Why before dawn?" "Because that's when the hunt begins." The words sank into her bones, cold as the rain. "What hunt?" she whispered. He didn't answer. His nostrils flared slightly. "You're bleeding." She glanced down. She'd scraped her palm on a rock. A single bead of blood slid down her skin and fell into the mud. The earth beneath her feet seemed to breathe. He swore under his breath, a sound too low and ancient to belong to English. "No." "What?" "The ground has tasted your blood." And then she felt it, the forest shifting, the air thickening, the rain starting again, slow and heavy. Arya backed up a step. "You're scaring me." "You should be scared," he said, his voice changing, richer, darker, almost a growl. "Because now the forest knows you." "What are you talking about?" His body trembled once, as if fighting something inside him. His eyes flared brighter. "It means I have no choice." He stepped closer. She should have run. She should have screamed. But she didn't. When he reached her, the heat radiating from his body made her skin burn. He looked down at her like she was both salvation and curse. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For what?" "For this." He pressed his blood-stained hand to the cut on her palm. For an instant everything stopped, sound, breath, thought. The contact burned through her veins like fire and light. She gasped, her knees almost giving out. The world tilted. "Who are you?" she managed. His eyes softened. though his voice trembled with something like regret. "My name is Cale Arden, and your blood just bound you to my world." The ground pulsed under them, light seeping through the soil in faint golden veins. The forest exhaled a deep, mournful sound, half wind, half something alive. "What's happening?" she whispered. Cale looked up at the moon breaking through the storm. "The claim has been made. You are under my protection now." Her breath caught. Protection from what? He met her eyes, and for a moment she saw what he truly was. The outline of fur beneath skin, the flicker of fangs behind human teeth, the wild heartbeat that wasn't human at all. "The pack," he said. "And the ones who would kill you for touching sacred ground." The lightning cracked again, lighting his face, beautiful and terrifying. "Why me?" He looked away, pain shadowing his features. "Because fate has a cruel sense of humor." The howls rose then, dozens of them rolling through the forest in waves. The sound made her skin crawl and her blood sing at once. Cale's hand tightened around hers. "They're coming. Don't let go of me." Before she could breathe, the air itself shifted, wind whipping the trees, thunder shattering the silence. He pulled her close, and she felt his body change, muscles contorting, bones stretching. He was transforming, and not into something gentle. The man was gone. The Lycan stood in his place, towering, massive, black-furred, gold-eyed. Arya stumbled back, heart hammering. The wolf turned his head toward her, and in those eyes, those impossible eyes, she saw the man still there, waiting. He growled low, motioning for her to hide behind him. The trees exploded as shadows burst through the rain. Figures leapt from the dark. Others like him, but not like him. Their eyes burned red. Their movements were wrong, feral, hungry, merciless. Cale roared, the sound tearing through the storm like thunder. The pack fell upon him. Arya covered her ears, pressed herself against the wet earth, and prayed the darkness would pass. Didn't. The fight raged, blood and fur and lightning. Cale tore through them, but there were too many. She could see him faltering, his side bleeding, his claws slick. She stood before she could think. She shouted his name. "Cale!" He turned, just enough to see her. That single heartbeat of distraction nearly killed him. One of the red-eyed beasts lunged, claws aimed for her throat. Arya screamed, and the ground answered. Light burst from the soil beneath her feet, silver and wild, throwing the attacker backward in a crack of thunder. Cale stared at her, astonished. The forest fell silent. Even the rain paused. "What did you do?" he asked, his voice half growl, half wonder. I don't know." He shifted back into human form, breathing hard, blood running down his arm. "The forest accepted your blood," he said quietly. "It's given you power." She took a shaky step toward him. "Power for what?" Cale's gaze softened, though pain lined his face. "To survive what comes next." She stared at him, trembling. "And what comes next?" He looked toward the horizon, where the first thin line of dawn was breaking through the clouds. "Dawn," he said. "And a war older than either of us." She frowned, voice breaking. "Why does it feel like I know you?" Cale's expression was unreadable. "Because you once did." And before she could ask what that meant, the storm finally broke, lightning splitting the sky, and the Lycan king turned away, his voice low and certain. "You were never supposed to come back here, Arya. But now that you have, nothing will ever be the same." The wind rose, carrying the faint echo of howls across the valley. The blood she'd spilled still glowed faintly where it had touched the earth. And before the dawn came, the forest whispered her name as if it had been waiting centuries to say it. Arya. Chosen blood. The one the moon had marked. The one he could never let go. Morning never looked so pale. The rain had stopped, but the sky over the Oregon highlands stayed the color of ash. Quiet, trembling, waiting. Arya Dalton stood at the edge of a clearing, barefoot, soaked and shaking. The forest was different in daylight. It wasn't calmer, only more honest. She could see what the night had hidden. claw marks on the trees, scorched ground where lightning hadn't struck, and blood, dark, drying, already sinking into the soil. Cale Arden was gone. At least, that's what she thought until she heard the river. She followed the sound until she found him kneeling by the water, his back to her. The bruises and gashes that had torn across his skin the night before were gone. His reflection in the current looked almost human, except for the faint shimmer of gold still burning behind his eyes. "You should have kept running," he said without looking up. Arya folded her arms, voice hoarse. "You're welcome for saving your life." His mouth twitched, almost a smile, almost regret. "You didn't save me. You saved yourself. The forest reacted to you. Not to me." "Right," she said bitterly. "Because I'm suddenly some kind of supernatural blood donor?" He finally turned. His expression softened, but his voice stayed measured. "Your blood woke it, Arya. The Hollow Forest hasn't answered anyone in over a century. Not since." He stopped himself. "Not since what?" Cale rose to his full height, water running down his bare chest, his hair dark and tangled from the storm. "Not since the last moon air was taken." Arya's stomach dropped. "The what?" "The moon air," he said. "The mortal vessel chosen to balance the Lycan line. When the air's blood touches sacred ground, the pact renews. Without it, the forest falls into hunger, and so do we." He said, "We like a confession." She took a step back. "So, I just accidentally woke up an ancient monster curse." His jaw tightened. "You didn't just wake it. You completed it." "I don't understand." "You don't need to." Arya's anger flared, sharp enough to mask the fear. "The hell I don't. You dragged me into this, your world, your war. The least you can do is tell me what I am." Cale's gaze locked on hers, gold bright against the gray sky. "You're the first blood of the moon's heir in 200 years. Her breath hitched. "That's impossible." "Your mother was one of us," he said quietly. "Half Lycan, half mortal. She ran from the clan before I could stop her." Arya shook her head. "No. My mother died when I was 8. She died because she tried to hide what you are," he said. "The Hollow always reclaims its own." She stared at him, her heart pounding in disbelief. "You're lying." "I wish I were." Cale looked away, his voice low. "She was the last woman I ever loved before the curse took me." The words cut through the cold air. Arya froze. "You loved her?" He didn't answer, but the silence said enough. She swallowed hard, her chest aching. "And now you think I'm supposed to replace her?" Cale's head snapped toward her, fury flashing in his eyes. "No. Don't mistake fate for desire. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I." They stared at each other, the forest between them holding its breath. Then, from somewhere deep within the trees, came a low sound, steady, rhythmic. A heartbeat that wasn't theirs. The ground trembled softly. Cale's eyes widened. "They're moving in daylight now." Arya frowned. "Who's moving?" "The Ashen Pack," he said. "Those who refused the moon's law. The blood you spilled last night woke more than the Hollow. It called to them." The forest darkened. Cale stepped forward, his voice urgent. "We need to get you to safety." Arya took a step back. "Safety? In your world?" "In mine or theirs," he growled. "You'll die either way unless I keep you breathing." "Where?" she asked, her voice small. "The manor," he said. "The seat of the Lycan king." "You mean your manor?" Cale's gaze flicked away, shame flashing across his face. "It's not a place I wanted to return to." "Why not?" He didn't answer, just started walking. "Because everything I ever lost began there." The manor appeared at dusk. It sat on the ridge above the Hollow, half devoured by vines and time. Massive stone pillars jutted from the earth, etched with runes that shimmered when Cale touched them. The heavy iron doors opened with a groan that sounded too alive. Inside, the air smelled like cedar, smoke, and something older. Candles burned in carved sconces. The hall stretched long and cold, Portraits of people who didn't age lining the walls, men and women with golden eyes and sorrow carved into their faces. "Welcome to your inheritance," Kale said bitterly. Arya turned in a slow circle. "This was your home. It was our prison." She looked at him. "You mean your families?" He didn't deny it. "We were bound here by the first pact. The Lycan king and his chosen heir. One to protect the forest, one to bleed for it. But the heir vanished generations ago, and the king became something worse. Half beast, half shadow. And you." His voice lowered. "I was the last in his line. Until you bled." Arya's breath hitched. "What does that make me?" Kale's expression turned unreadable. "It makes you mine to protect." She stepped closer, her pulse racing. "You keep saying that like it's a choice. It isn't." The air between them thickened. The scent of rain still clung to both of them. Kale's hand brushed against hers, just enough to send a tremor through her chest. He drew back fast, jaw tight. "Don't," he said. "Don't what?" "Don't make me remember what it feels like to want." Arya swallowed, unable to look away. "You think you're cursed, Kale, but I think you're just afraid." He turned sharply, fury flickering in his eyes. "Afraid of what?" Her voice softened. "Of loving something the forest can take from you." The silence that followed was long and heavy, filled only by the whisper of the rain outside. Finally, Kale said, "There are worse fates than love." Arya managed a faint smile. "Name one." He looked at her, something broken and ancient in his gaze. "Immortality without it." A sudden crash shattered the moment. The windows exploded inward, glass scattering across the stone floor. Shadows poured through the openings, shapes like wolves but twisted, malformed, dripping with black mist. Kale shifted in a heartbeat, his roar shaking the walls. "Stay behind me." Arya grabbed a shard of iron from the floor, her blood smearing across it. The instant the metal touched her skin, it flared with silver light. The creatures hesitated, hissing. Kale turned, astonished. "How?" But before he could finish, she swung. The nearest beast dissolved in a burst of fire. The others snarled, retreating into the night. When the last shadow vanished, Arya dropped the blade, her breath ragged. "What are they?" Kale's human form returned, eyes glowing faintly. "They're what happens when Lycans lose their soul to hunger. And they're coming for me." He nodded slowly. "They're coming for both of us." She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Why both?" "Because," he said, "when your blood touched the ground last night, it didn't just awaken the forest, it awakened me." The storm outside broke again, the thunder shaking the manor to its bones. Kale stepped toward her, his voice low and rough. "And now, Arya Dalton, whether you want it or not, you belong to the Lycan king." The rain outside turned to snow. The moon rose red. And somewhere deep beneath the manor, something ancient stirred, breathing, waiting for the night she'd have to choose between his world and her own. The first snow of the season fell over the hollow that night, quiet and endless. It came soft at first, then heavier, blanketing the forest until even sound itself seemed buried. But inside the manor, there was no peace. Only the pulse of something alive and restless under the stone floors, like the heartbeat of the world itself. Arya couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashes of gold eyes, blood in the rain, and the way the forest had seemed to breathe when her blood touched the ground. She wandered the corridors barefoot, her fingertips grazing the cold walls. Old portraits stared back, men and women who looked too alive to be gone. Every one of them bore the same mark on their wrist, a crescent moon surrounded by roots. When she reached the end of the hall, she found a heavy wooden door carved with symbols that shimmered faintly in the candlelight. Kale's voice came from behind her. "You shouldn't be here." He turned. He was standing in the shadows, wearing only dark pants and the exhaustion of centuries. His hair was damp, his chest bare. Arya crossed her arms. "You really need to stop sneaking up on people. You really need to stop testing the forest." I wasn't testing anything. I couldn't sleep. He stepped closer, his eyes catching the candlelight. The manor listens when you walk through it. It remembers bloodlines. Whose bloodline? Yours or mine? Kale stopped in front of her, too close. Both. The silence stretched. He didn't look away. Neither did she. Finally she said, "What's behind this door?" His expression tightened. "The truth you're not ready to face. Try me." He exhaled slowly, a sound between a sigh and a growl. "It's the crypt, where the last heirs of the moon are kept." "Kept. Buried," he said quietly. "And guarded." Arya's throat went dry. "You mean my mother?" Kale's gaze softened. "Yes. And others who came before her." He reached for the door handle, but the symbols flared white-hot beneath his touch. He winced, pulling back. "It won't let me in," he said. "It's your blood it wants." Arya hesitated. "And if I open it, you'll see the cost of the moon's power." Her hand trembled as she pressed it to the wood. The carvings pulsed under her skin, warm, alive. The lock clicked. The door swung inward with a sigh that smelled of rain and age. Inside, the air was colder, thick with the scent of earth and something sweetly decayed. The chamber stretched downward in spirals of stone. Candles burned in iron sconces, though no one had lit them. Arya stepped carefully, Kale following behind her. At the bottom, the corridor opened into a wide crypt. Marble coffins lined the walls, each etched with runes. But only one stood open at the center, covered by a sheer veil of frost. Arya approached it slowly. Inside lay a woman with hair like silver, hands folded across her chest. She looked young, but her stillness felt ancient. "My mother," Arya whispered. Kale bowed his head. "Althea Dalton, the last moon heir before you." Arya reached out, her fingers hovering above the woman's face. The air hummed. Kale's voice lowered. "Be careful. The forest sleeps through her. I just want to know why she left me." Before he could stop her, she touched her mother's hand. The world shattered. Arya gasped as light poured through her veins. The crypt vanished. She stood in a forest lit by silver fire, the air thick with the smell of rain and blood. A voice, familiar, soft, sorrowful, whispered behind her. "You shouldn't have come." He turned. Her mother stood there, alive, dressed in white, her hair glowing like the moon. "Mom." Althea smiled faintly. "I hoped you wouldn't follow. I had to. You were never supposed to be part of this world," Althea said. "I gave everything to keep you free of it. Then why is it hunting me?" Her mother's expression darkened. "Because of him." Arya followed her gaze, and saw Kale standing a few paces away, younger, bare-chested, his hands stained red. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at her mother. "You can't run from it forever," Kale said in the vision. "If you break the bond, the forest will take you." "I'd rather die than belong to you," Althea hissed. "Then it will take your child instead." The vision broke. Arya fell to her knees in the crypt, gasping, tears mixing with blood from her nose. Kale caught her before she hit the floor. "Arya, what did you see?" Her voice shook. "Ooh. You threatened her." He froze, pain flickering across his face. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it, Kale?" she cried, shoving him back. "Tell me what you did." His voice cracked with something like shame. "I was the one who bound her to the forest. The night she ran, she took the pact with her, and you were the price. Her bloodline was supposed to end, not continue." Arya stared at him in horror. "You tried to kill me before I was even born." "I tried to save my clan," he said. "The balance was breaking. The hollow was dying. She was the heir, and she refused the bond. So you forced it." He bowed his head. "Yes." The truth hit harder than any blow. Arya backed away, trembling. "Everything you said, the protection, the claim, it wasn't about me. It was about fixing what you broke." Kale's voice softened, raw and desperate. "It started that way. It isn't anymore. Don't, she said, her eyes wet and furious. Don't lie to me now. I'm not. He stepped closer, his voice breaking. You think I don't feel it? Every time you breathe, the forest trembles. Every time you bleed, I feel it in my bones. Whatever curse this is, it's not one I regret. She shook her head. You ruined my mother's life. And I'll spend the rest of mine protecting hers. The ground trembled beneath them. The candles flickered out. A voice rose from the dark. Deep, echoing, familiar. The forest knows the truth now. The debt must be paid. Kale turned sharply. The Hollow King. Arya's pulse quickened. Who? The first Lycan, Kale said. The one who forged the pact. He's waking. The air thickened, cold as ice. From the far wall, shadows began to crawl, merging into a figure tall and thin, wearing a crown of roots and bone. Its eyes burned with red light. You broke the seal, Kale Arden. You let the air live. Now the moon will bleed again. Kale snarled, half-shifting, fangs flashing. You'll have to take her over my dead body. The Hollow King smiled. Gladly. He raised his hand, and the air exploded. Kale was thrown back against the wall. Arya screamed, reaching for him. Her blood hit the stone, glowing silver. The king turned toward her. Your mother's gift lives in you. Give it willingly, and I'll let him die quickly. Arya stared at Kale, broken, gasping, eyes pleading with her not to move. But the forest inside her was awake now. She rose slowly, the silver light spilling from her skin, the power of generations humming in her veins. I'm not my mother, she said softly. And I don't make bargains. Then she stepped forward, her blood dripping onto the earth. The ground erupted in light. The Hollow King screamed. Kale shouted her name. His voice full of fear and something else, love. The chamber shook, the crypt splitting open, and the forest above roared as if in pain. Arya turned back once, her eyes glowing silver white. Run, she whispered. Then everything went white. The blast of light tore through the crypt, rattling the bones of the mountain itself. When it faded, silence fell, thick, suffocating. The air reeked of iron and ash. Kale pushed himself up from the cracked stone, his body trembling from the force of the blast. The runes that once sealed the chamber were gone. The walls dripped with moonlight and blood. And at the center of it all, Arya stood, alive but changed. Her eyes burned silver white. The glow ran through her veins like liquid light, pulsing in rhythm with the heartbeat of the forest. Kale's voice broke the silence. Arya! She turned toward him slowly, her expression distant, otherworldly. He's not gone. Kale followed her gaze. The Hollow King's body had collapsed into shadow, but his crown, root and bone, remained. It pulsed faintly with red light, still alive, still waiting. Kale moved closer, his instincts screaming caution. The Hollow King can't die. He's bound to the moon itself. Arya's voice was soft but steady. Then I'll unbind him. Before he could stop her, she stepped forward. The crown's glow flared as she approached, reacting to her blood. The air turned cold enough to hurt. Arya, no. Kale's voice cracked with desperation. He lunged for her hand, but she turned, her light flaring bright enough to burn his skin. You can't protect me from this, she said, her eyes shimmering with tears that glowed like mercury. This started because of us, because of what you did to her. It ends with me. Kale staggered back, his chest tightening. You don't even know what it'll cost. Yes, I do. Her voice trembled, but there was steel beneath it. My mother gave up her life to keep the seal closed. I'll give up mine to end it forever. Kale shook his head violently. No, you can't. The forest doesn't need your death. It needs balance. It needs a bond, she said quietly, finishing the sentence he couldn't. The words froze him. How do you know that? Arya looked down at the crown, her expression unreadable. The forest told me. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Arya, listen to me. The bond is not a spell, it's a sacrifice. Means surrendering everything you are. Your soul, your name, your heart. Once it's sealed, there's no coming back. She met his gaze, her tears glistening in the light. Then tell me something, Kale. When you bound my mother to the forest, did you love her? He hesitated, guilt flickering behind his eyes. Yes. Then why did you let her die? His voice broke. Because I didn't understand the cost until it was too late. Arya's expression softened. Just a little. Then you understand now. Arya! She pressed her glowing palm to his chest. The heat of it went straight through him, burning and electric. Her voice dropped to a whisper. If a bond is what it takes, then I choose mine. He caught her wrist, his grip trembling. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, she said. Because if I don't, the forest will keep taking. It'll take you next. And I can't let that happen. Her voice cracked on the last word, and something in Kale shattered. He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. Don't do this for me. I'm not, she said. I'm doing it for the world you're still part of. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a tear. You don't even know what love is, Arya. She smiled faintly. Then teach me. Before the sun rises. The ground shook beneath them. The hollow king's crown pulsed brighter, feeding on her light. The forest above them howled, an echo of wind and wolves and ancient hunger. Kale's voice dropped to a whisper. If you do this, you'll become part of the hollow. You won't be human anymore. Neither are you, she said softly. For a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hung between them. Fear, guilt, love, destiny. Then she leaned forward and kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't tentative. It was desperate, like a dam breaking. The light in her veins flared, pouring into him. For a second he felt alive again. Not as a monster, not as a king, but as a man. When the kiss broke, she was crying. Now you understand, she whispered. Now you can let me go. Kale's voice shook. I can't. The ground split open beneath the crown, light spilling out like molten silver. The hollow king's voice rose from the darkness, a whisper that became a scream. A bond cannot heal what was never broken. Arya looked at Kale one last time. Yes, it can. Then she stepped into the light. Kale lunged after her, but the force threw him back. He hit the wall hard, breath torn from his chest. The light engulfed everything, stone, air, sound, thought. Through the glare, he saw her silhouette, arms outstretched, hair whipping around her like a halo of silver fire. And then she was gone. The light collapsed inward, vanishing into the earth. The crown shattered. The air stilled. The hollow was silent. Kale crawled toward the center of the chamber, his body shaking. The ground where she'd stood was scorched in the shape of a crescent moon. He reached for it, his hand trembling. The stone was still warm. He pressed his palm against it, his voice raw. Arya! No answer. Above him the ceiling cracked. A single shaft of moonlight broke through, spilling across his face. The glow that had once lived in her now burned faintly in his veins. Her blood, her light, her bond. The forest outside exhaled for the first time in centuries. The snow stopped falling. The air cleared. But Kale didn't move. He stayed there, kneeling, the moonlight marking him as both king and prisoner. The door behind him opened. A voice, soft, trembling, broke the silence. Kale! He turned. A young girl stood in the doorway, no older than 7. Her hair was the color of ash, her eyes bright silver. Kale's heart stopped. The girl tilted her head. The forest said you'd be here. Who are you? He whispered. She smiled, small and knowing. You already know. Her gaze dropped to the glowing mark on his chest, the same crescent moon surrounded by roots. Then, softly, she said the words that nearly brought him to his knees. She told me to find you before dawn. And before he could speak, the first light of morning broke through the ruins of the manor, painting the world in gold. Kale closed his eyes, tears slipping silently down his face. Arya's blood had touched the ground, and in its place, something new had risen. A child of moonlight, bond reborn. And the Lycan king, immortal and damned, bowed his head as the dawn finally claimed him. Dawn came slowly to the hollow. For the first time in a century, the forest no longer breathed with hunger but with life. The light threaded through the ancient trees, washing the frost from their branches. The air that once tasted of blood and ash now smelled of pine and new rain. But inside the ruins of the Lycan manor, time had stopped. Cale Arden sat on the cold stone steps, shirtless, his skin pale beneath streaks of dried blood. His golden eyes were dulled, heavy with loss. He had not spoken since the night Arya vanished into the light, since her blood sealed the hollow and remade the balance he had destroyed. In front of him stood the child. The girl was small, barefoot, her silver hair tangled and shining like liquid moonlight. She moved quietly, with a calm too old for her years. And when she looked at him, the world seemed to still. "Cale," she said, her voice soft as breath. "You shouldn't cry." His head lifted slowly. "You shouldn't be here." "The forest brought me," she answered. "It said you were waiting." Cale stared at her, his heart twisting. "What's your name, child?" She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Arden." He froze. "Who told you to say that?" he whispered. The girl tilted her head, eyes bright silver. "She did. The woman in the light." Cale's breath caught in his throat. "Arya. She said you'd understand." Cale's voice broke. "Understand what?" The girl stepped closer, placing her small hand over the glowing mark on his chest. "That she's not gone. That she lives where the light meets the wild." Her touch burned and soothed all at once. Cale's vision blurred. He felt the bond, the one he'd thought destroyed, stir again, faint but steady. The forest outside seemed to respond, the wind shifting as though listening. "She said you'd have to teach me," the girl continued. "Teach me how to hear the forest, how to be its keeper." Cale swallowed hard, forcing words through the ache. "The forest doesn't need another heir." "Yes," the girl said gently. "It does. The old one gave her life so it could live again. And she left you to guide the next." He shook his head. "I don't deserve that." The child studied him for a moment, then reached up, wiping away a tear that had fallen onto his cheek. "She forgave you." Those words undid him. He turned away, his body shaking, and for the first time in centuries, the Lycan king wept. By evening, the snow had melted from the valley. Cale took the child, Arden, through the forest paths that had once been forbidden. She asked endless questions about the trees, the wolves, the moon. Her laughter startled birds from the branches. At one point, she stopped and crouched beside a patch of wet earth. A single flower had grown there, silver and pale blue, the exact shade of Arya's eyes. "What is it?" she asked. Cale knelt beside her. "Moonbloom. It only grows where sacred blood was spilled." Arden touched the petals gently. "She's still here." He nodded, his throat tight. "Always." They kept walking until dusk, when the mist returned, soft and cool. The forest no longer felt haunted, felt awake, alive, balanced. Arden ran ahead, spinning in the fog. "The forest likes me," she called out. "It sings when I run." Cale smiled faintly. "It sang for her too." "She told me that," the child said. "She said you used to sing with it." He frowned slightly. "I don't remember how." "Then I'll help you." Her words made something deep in him break and mend all at once. That night they camped near the river. The same river that had once reflected fire and lightning now flowed calm, silver under the moon. Cale sat near the fire while Arden curled up in his cloak, watching the flames dance. "Will you tell me about her?" the child asked sleepily. Cale hesitated. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." He smiled faintly. "She was stubborn, fierce, braver than anyone I've ever known." "Was she like me?" "In some ways," he said softly. But she had a wildness even the forest feared. Arden smiled drowsily. That's what it told me. What did it tell you, little one? That she's part of it now, she murmured. When the wind blows through the trees, that's her voice. When the wolves howl, that's her call. When the moon rises. She yawned, curling into herself. That's her watching you. Kale stared into the fire long after she fell asleep, the crackle and hiss filling the silence. The moon climbed higher, silver light cutting through the branches. He closed his eyes and listened. And for the first time he heard it again, the sound he'd thought lost forever. A whisper. Familiar. You kept your promise. Kale's breath caught. Arya. She's safe. The hollow's safe. He bowed his head. And you. I'm everywhere. The fire dimmed, flickering blue for a heartbeat before returning to gold. Kale lifted his gaze to the sky. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Then make it worth something, she whispered. Then the wind shifted, and her voice faded back into the forest. Kale looked over at the sleeping child. The moonlight shimmered in her hair. She was smiling as though she heard it too. He rose and walked to the edge of the water, the reflection of the moon rippling under his feet. He could see himself clearly, no longer the monster he had once been. The light in his veins was no longer just gold. It was silver now too. Earth. He knelt and whispered the ancient words, the same ones that had bound his ancestors to the forest. By blood and by moonlight, I vow to guard what the wild gives. The wind sighed through the pines, carrying her voice one last time. And love what it cannot keep. Kale smiled sadly. Behind him Arden stirred. Are you talking to her again? She mumbled. He looked back at her, warmth in his voice. Always. She yawned, curling closer to the fire. Good. She misses you. Kale sat beside her, watching the flames burn lower as dawn began to rise. The first rays of sunlight touched the forest, painting the world in gold and silver, their colors forever entwined. The hollow was reborn, the curse undone. And the Lycan king, once cursed to live without love, finally understood what it meant to be free. As the child dreamed beside him, the forest sang, a song of light, of balance, of redemption. It was her song. And this time, the night answered not with howls but with peace.